The world of football has seen many great managers over the years. From true giants of the game like Carlo Ancelotti and Sir Alex Ferguson, to revolutionaries like Guardiola and Marcelo Bielsa. There are managers that play a heavy metal brand of football like Jurgen Klopp. And then there are the psychological masterminds like Jose Mourinho and serial winners like Antonio Conte. There have been new young managers, and then there are the battle-hardened veterans of old. Look at any team today, and you only need to look so far as the manager to understand exactly what style of football they're likely to adopt. Certain managers, however, over the past few seasons have genuinely stood above all others and made it to the very top of the footballing pyramid. At the pinnacle stands a certain United legend in Sir Alex Ferguson, who's won an incredible 49 trophies in his managerial career. He started off as a manager in 1974 and retired in 2013. So in the 39 years that Sir Alex Ferguson was working, he won 49 trophies, which estimates to be roughly 1.26 trophies every season. Mourinho and Ancelotti are two of the most well-known managers of the modern era and are labelled as serial winners. Mourinho is the only manager to have won all three European trophies that are available, and Ancelotti has won a league title in each of the top 5 leagues in Europe. Additionally, he's also won the highly coveted Champions League title 4 times. But one name stands among all of them, who despite his success, has seen a lot of attacks accusing him of not being on the same level as other managers. He has won 31 titles across his managerial career, more than any other manager still managing today in the top 5 European leagues. He's often accused of buying his way to success and joining already successful teams to further cement his legacy. Apparently, he has never really managed at a club where his skills as a manager have been tested. Hi guys, and welcome to Football Talk. Today we're going to be making a video similar to the managerial breakdowns we've done earlier, including the one we did on Ten Hag before United won against Liverpool, telling everybody to be patient because Ten Hag was a brilliant manager, and English fans were judging him too quickly for losing to Brentford. But no, the footballing world moved too fast, and nobody remembers anymore how they bashed poor Eric because he's now the best thing to have happened in England since sliced bread. Never mind. That's not the point. The point is that we do a lot of football analysis here, and when the manager or a player does not get the appreciation they rightly deserve, we usually have something to say about it. Pep Guardiola is one such figure. In fact, we'd go as far to say that Pep Guardiola is probably the only manager who's both overrated and underrated at the same time. He's overrated by the people that think he's already the greatest to have ever managed in the sport. That is not true. He still has to overtake Sir Alex Ferguson and perhaps Carlo Ancelotti as well, because of his lack of success in the Champions League. But for context, only 3 managers have won the Champions League more times than Pep Guardiola. That list includes Carlo Ancelotti, Zinedine Zidane and Bob Paisley. What we're going to do in this video, however, is breaking down the myths that surround Guardiola's managerial career to prove that most of the attacks that were made against him simply should not stand. So what are these big accusations that make Guardiola fraudiola? He only goes to already successful teams and builds on others' success with infinite resources being thrown at whatever player he wants. We'll be looking at these accusations for each of the clubs he's managed so far and see how well they stand out. But before that, to imply that Guardiola only goes on to manage at ready-made clubs is ridiculous, because it's like other managers don't do the same. Mourinho may have started at Porto, a relatively small club, but he then went on to manage Chelsea, which gave him mountains of money to spend on any player he likes. Most of that anger seems to have been directed at Abramovich and Chelsea instead of Mourinho, the man who actually wanted those players. He then left Chelsea to coach Inter in Serie A, where Inter had won 3 consecutive Serie A titles under Roberto Mancini, despite their rivals Milan having won the Champions League in that time, boasting the talents of players like a prime Kaká, Clarence Seedorf and Maldini. So it wasn't exactly a small club he joined. After that, he went on to Madrid, where Madrid had plenty of cash to help Mourinho build a team, and many world-class players already. After that, he went back to Chelsea, so this myth of Mourinho building teams in comparison to Guardiola seems a little far-fetched. This is not meant to downplay Mourinho's achievements in any way, just to say that both are historically great managers and have managed only the biggest clubs in world football. In fact, Mourinho's appointment at United too, even if the task at hand was great, United wasn't a small club without any money. Record-breaking signings were made, such as Paul Pogba, Romelu Lukaku, Matic, and many more. So to act like other managers have not been at big clubs too, with a lot of money being spent, is just unfair. Carlo Ancelotti similarly had managed at Milan, then Chelsea, then PSG, then Real Madrid, and there was a break at Everton, but nobody counts those years, and he's back at Real Madrid again. He's also been working with big teams his entire career with big money to spend. Simply put, if you're one of the best managers in the world, of course, you're going to get more money to spend. The only exception to this rule, and yes, definitely the only one at a top flight level who has then also been successful, is perhaps Jurgen Klopp, who has been working on a smaller budget. Not in 2004, but 2020, and has made shrewd signings to get the clubs he's working with to a dominant position. But he has not won nearly as many trophies as any of the other managers mentioned in this list. Number 1. This is a strange accusation to make because it sort of implies that the teams that Guardiola manages are just big clubs that have already won before him and don't necessarily need him. When he joined Barcelona, Barcelona had not won the league title for 2 consecutive seasons under Frank Rijkaard. They finished 17 points behind league leaders Real Madrid and a full 10 points behind Villarreal. In the 9 seasons before Guardiola's arrival, Barcelona had only won 2 league titles, and these 2 coincided with Ronaldinho's greatest years as a footballer between 2004 and 2006. Apart from that, they'd won no such title. In fact, after arriving at Barcelona, he offloaded legendary fullback Gianluca Zambrotta and Ronaldinho to Milan. It would take a lot of guts to kick Ronaldinho out of your team back then, when he had been so utterly dominant for so long. But Guardiola did it as soon as he arrived. In his very first season, he signed Dani Alves, Seydou Keita, re-signed Gerard Piqué from Manchester United, and promoted Sergio Busquets and Pedro to the first-team squad, revolutionising how Barcelona played in the process and finishing with a full 20 points more than Frank Rijkaard in his last year. Barcelona finished with the highest points total since the 96-97 season. As for buying all the players he could need with this team, the only genuine superstars that Guardiola signed as Barcelona manager were the signings of David Villa, Cesc Fabregas, and Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Zlatan would leave after a single season because he just could not gel with Guardiola's philosophy. Fabregas was a Barcelona Academy graduate who was always going to rejoin his childhood teammates eventually, as an Arsenal fan would tell you. David Villa was a superstar, and he lived up to his reputation. Players like Gerard Piqué, Javier Mascherano, Alexis Sanchez, Keita, and Dani Alves were good, but became recognised global superstars after being coached by Guardiola. Number 2. At Bayern, he genuinely joined a team that was already incredible, and Jupp Heynckes' year as manager in 2012-13 could be considered arguably the greatest season for any team in world football. What people forget here is that Pep was announced as the new manager in January, a full 6 seasons before the season was going to end. He was joining Bayern after they'd lost the Bundesliga title to Borussia Dortmund and lost the Champions League final to Chelsea the year before. You can only say that Guardiola improved Bayern. In the 3 seasons that he was there, he broke record after record in the Bundesliga. But of course, the Bundesliga is the Farmers' League, so why does it matter? Not like De Bruyne at Wolfsburg and talents like Marco Reus, Mats Hummels, or a fiery Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang were a challenge. Of course not. He lost in the Champions League final though. Keep in mind that he lost to the all-dominating Real Madrid side in 2014, which would then go on to win the Champions League for a record 10th time, led by Cristiano Ronaldo at the absolute peak of his career. He then lost the next year to Barcelona, where Messi, Neymar, and Suarez had been unplayable all year, and would go on to win a historic treble. In his 3rd year, he lost to an Atletico Madrid side on the away goals rule, where, despite the goals being matched, Bayern didn't have more away goals and would crash out. Keep in mind that this is a season where Atletico hadn't lost to Real Madrid all season, before they lost on penalties in the Champions League final. So it wasn't like they were being battered left and right. They were beaten by the BBC at their peak, then by MSN at their peak, and then by a rugged Atletico defence that just refused to concede a goal. At Bayern, Mario Götze was brought from Dortmund, but never really hit the heights he was expected to hit. The only other superstars that he brought were Arturo Vidal from Juventus and Robert Lewandowski on a free from Bayern. Xabi Alonso too joined Bayern at a very late stage of his career, at the age of 32. Players like Joshua Kimmich, bought for €8.5 million, Juan Bernat for €10 million, and Kingsley Coman for €7.5 million were never regarded as superstars, but became hugely impressive stars after being coached by Guardiola. So yes, the accusations of raiding other Bundesliga teams and making them weaker may be fair, but none of those signings are remotely close to the amounts being spent by other clubs on recruitment at the time, and none of the players mentioned barring Xabi Alonso, who was aging, and Lewandowski, who was a great goalscorer then, but still not considered world-class just yet, were even household names or global superstars. Number 3. At City is perhaps where both those accusations have stood strongest. With close to $1 billion being spent already on signings since he arrived in England after he joined a Premier League winning team. Except before Guardiola's arrival in the 2016-17 season, City had just finished 4th in 2015-16 and had won just 2 titles in 8 seasons preceding Guardiola's arrival. Chelsea won in 2014-15, Leicester City in 2015-16, and Chelsea again in 2016-17. And since then, Guardiola has won every season barring one, when the pandemic hit and Liverpool won under Klopp. It wasn't like they were a domestic juggernaut before his arrival. It was a toss-up between Chelsea and United for the title, and occasionally City would win. After Guardiola's arrival, it's been just City. City have been spending excessively since the 2008 season, but that wasn't a guarantee of success. Clubs like Manchester United and Chelsea have matched City's spending, but have gotten nowhere near the same results. But there's a need for a deeper look into City's signings as well before just labelling Guardiola as the manager who gets the complete player. Erling Haaland, Riyad Mahrez and Jack Grealish are the only bona fide superstars that Guardiola has signed. Grealish only cost such an obscene amount because he's English and City wanted him. No other club in the world would have paid so much for him. There's a problem when City and Guardiola approach you, however. The asking price for the player instantly goes up. If Chelsea were to approach a player, their value wouldn't be as high as when Guardiola approaches one. This is how it works. Guardiola does not want just any player. He has a very specific type that he wants and looks for in the market. Clubs that City contact are fully aware of this fact, and that's why you see such relatively unknown players command such high fees. Nobody would have known Ruben Diaz or Aymeric Laporte. Both were good, but not 71 million and 65 million good, when nobody had heard of them. Kyle Walker at Tottenham was considered a decent right-back, but not the kind that any team would offer 52 million euros for in 2017. This is a year that PSG bought both Kylian Mbappe and Neymar. Guardiola also bought Rodri for 62 million, Benjamin Mendy for 57 million, and John Stones for 50 million when he was just 22 at Everton, and nobody ever thought he was worth that much. He bought a 20-year-old Leroy Sané for 52 million and players like Gabriel Jesus directly from Brazil for 32 million euros. All the players we've mentioned commanded huge transfer fees, but were not players that the rest of the world was absolutely obsessing over and desperate to get. It was Guardiola who wanted them and turned them into household names. But again, his spending is at best comparable to other big teams around Europe. Except for Jack Grealish, none of the players Guardiola bought were record-breaking transfers. In fact, you only need to look back to the reactions around Twitter when City signed De Bruyne a full year before Guardiola joined for 55 million. They thought he was going to be a big money signing doomed to fail. Guardiola knows the type of players that fit into his system, and because it's not every player, naturally whomever he chooses is sold to City for a ridiculously high fee, because the club is fully aware of Guardiola's interest in them. Whatever your thoughts may be on Guardiola as a manager, there's no doubt that he's genuinely one of the top managers in the world. This year, given how Haaland has already scored 13 goals in just his first month at the club, and how the squad only seems to be growing from strength to strength as the season progresses, maybe it's finally time to acknowledge Guardiola as one of the game's true greats.